Hi, thank you for watching Digging to China. I'm Dong Xiong. If you have not done so already, you can pause and subscribe to my channel. Thanks in advance. Last fall, China was the biggest exporter of COVID-19 vaccines to developing countries. Two factors contribute to this. One, China had huge production capacity. And two, other major vaccine manufacturing countries were less focused on exports. Most of the Chinese vaccines were supplied through bilateral commercial deals, and the priority was given to Asia, where Beijing wants to expand its soft power. From late last year, the United States began to donate more vaccines after its domestic needs were met. By the same time, China also ramped up donations, either through bilateral arrangements or the WHO's COVAX facility. Things have changed this year. China's vaccine exports have dropped sharply since January. Both commercial deals and donations have dropped sharply. According to United Nations, Chinese vaccines no longer make up the bulk of supplies in low and middle-income countries. One reason for this is the availability of other vaccines with better efficacy data than the Chinese ones. Another reason is that developing countries now have more than enough vaccines, but their vaccination rates remain relatively low. All of this is affecting China's vaccine diplomacy. According to British analytics firm Affinity, overseas deliveries of Chinese vaccines made by Sinopharm, Sinovac, and CanSino peaked in November last year at 235 million doses. Of those, 209 million doses were commercial deals. By December, shipments of commercial deals had dropped to 89 million doses. But the total exports were still high at close to 200 million doses because of the increase in deliveries to COVAX program. In the first 3 months of this year, exports then plunged. In January, less than 52 million doses, in February, 36 million, and in March, 11.5 million. Last year, most of the Chinese vaccines went to developing countries, while mRNA vaccine makers like Pfizer and Moderna mainly supplied to wealthy nations. But in the first 3 months this year, Pfizer, for the first time, surpassed the Chinese drug makers as the largest supplier to low and lower middle-income countries. In January, 91 million doses, in February close to 86 million, and in March more than 46 million doses, UN data shows. According to Bridge Consulting, a Beijing-based consulting firm which tracks Chinese vaccine distribution overseas, there is a significant drop in shipments from China this year. Export from Pfizer and Moderna increases. India's export increased as well. Brazil and Indonesia are the two key buyers of Chinese vaccines. Neither country renewed purchase deals that ended in 2021. Nicholas Thomas is a professor at the City University of Hong Kong. He said it was clear from the vaccine approval data that most countries around the world prefer the Pfizer and AstraZeneca vaccines. As Omicron becomes the dominant global strain, it would be only natural that countries would prefer more effective vaccines in order to safeguard their populations, Thomas said. Many scientists and studies have suggested that while Chinese vaccines are less effective than mRNA and the protein ones, they could still reduce death and severe illness. But with more options now available, some countries are less likely to choose the Chinese vaccines. That is the case in Africa. Key markets for Chinese vaccines last year, such as Indonesia and the UAE, are now seeking to diversify their sources and buying from Western drug makers. Brazil has been an important base for Sinovac to expand its presence in South America through cooperation in clinical trials and production. However, Brazil too has diversified its partners to include BioNTech, AstraZeneca, and the Mount Sinai Hospital in the US to develop or produce vaccines. According to Yang Zhonghuang, a senior fellow for global health at the Council on Foreign Relations, China has the capacity to produce 5 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccines a year. That should be enough to cover both exports and domestic demand, even as the booster program is accelerated lately. He said the decline in Chinese vaccine exports was partly to do with efficacy concerns, he said. The Omicron variant may create even greater problems for countries dependent on Chinese doses. But while efficacy concerns may prompt some countries to reconsider Chinese vaccines, it is too early to predict a global rejection, Huang said. While efficacy is one issue, another is demand. For the first time, United Nations COVAX had more supply than demand in January. In early April, the African Union and the COVAX even turned down an option to obtain 110 million Moderna doses in the first 2 quarters and 332 million in the third and the fourth quarters. With less demand, vaccine exports have fallen worldwide. The total went from 1.5 billion doses shipped in December to 550 million in March. Is this the end of vaccine diplomacy? Some analysts say yes. If the trend continues, it could be the end for China's vaccine diplomacy. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Just click the subscribe button right here. I'll see you again shortly.